Hey, happy Sunday, everybody. This is Eric.
And this is Trevor, and this is Columbus This Week.
Yep. So we have a lot of cool stuff to talk about this week. Everything ranging from North Korea launching some really cool ICBMs for our 4th of July, birthday and everything. And then, we had protesters here in Columbus. So, which I think I could probably just go ahead and lead off with that topic.
Oh, you're not going to mention the killer topic we have. Ivanka Trump sitting in on the G20 for her father.
No, we gotta save that for later.
All right,
so that way people listen through the whole podcast.
We'll save the best for last. All right, let's get to the protest you mentioned.
Yeah. So earlier last week there were some activists protesting, and so for those of you guys who don't know, Trevor, I'm not sure how much you know, but so Rob Portman's one of the big Republican architects of repealing the Affordable Care Act. So he's here. His office is here in Columbus and all this stuff. And I guess earlier last week they had some people, 15 or 16 people who came by to protest, and so they sat in on his office and everything, which is fine. I think that's great. You should come. You should protest something that you disagree with. Personally, I'm more of a universal healthcare kind of guy, so I don't really fall on either. Well, I guess I fall on one side of the debate, but I can kind of see it on both sides. So, what ended up happening, and what the big controversy is I guess somebody called for an ambulance because somebody has chest pains. Protesters naturally didn't let somebody in. I got to give credit to Portman's office. It seemed like they handled the whole situation pretty well. They were from what I read, they actually let the protesters stay in the building. They didn't kick him out or anything like that. And it's if somebody calls for an ambulance, you got to get out of the way. It doesn't matter if you're a protester or not. And so, it's I don't know. It's one of those things where it ended up blowing up into a big deal. And I don't know. It's people are hey, we got to hold him accountable for stuff, and it's fine, but you can't just block ambulances. You just can't do that. So that was one of the probably the first big news-ish kind of thing that happened in Columbus this week. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised at how it turned out. I think protesting has really sort of become this kind of poorly behaved sport, I guess.
Yeah.
I think most of the protests you're seeing recently are generally very poorly behaved, right? The Women's March aside, I think most protests have been rather destructive.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, sort of, I guess not to the benefit of the people at large, right? So there was that Black Lives Matter thing a few weeks ago at the Pride Parade,
right,
where they decided to interrupt the march in Columbus because they didn't like the fact that Columbus PD had a float in the parade,
right,
and then people got arrested,
right.
I think there are a lot of bad faith protesters who are willing to let people get hurt.
Well, the thing that really bothers me about this though is so on one hand I get that this is a national issue. On the other hand, from what I've read, and if you're a listener, definitely go do your own due diligence, but most of the protesters weren't from Ohio, let alone Columbus. So, we have a whole bunch of people coming from out of state and then kind of disrupting things in our city. And that kind of thing just kind of bothers me because it's almost these guys are and girls are professional protesters. That's they come in, they know how to do a protest and they organize and do protesting. Whereas I feel I don't know, maybe I wasn't there, but maybe I'm misunderstanding but something like Vietnam protests, those were organic, people were together, they weren't, there were some incidents of course, but it felt like it wasn't, it seems like everything's just kind of getting blown out of proportion.
I don't know that I call them professional protesters. I don't really like that phrase, but I will say that there's a certain class of people that's capable of living this sort of protest lifestyle that seems to be growing. Right. It's sort of affluent upper middle class to upper class people,
right,
who who can afford to spend a couple of years of their life not working.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's most of America, and I think I think these people are sort of reflecting the values of a wealth or of a moneyed minority, I should say.
Yeah, and I think it depends too on which what the issue is, because there's some of these things I'm I have to go to work today. I can't just miss work to go, protest or something like that. And on the other hand, there are people who, I don't know, I kind of agree, because I think there are a lot of people kind of have the luxury to take time off and like travel around the country and like protest, which is fine. Like, you're an American, do whatever. But on the other hand, it's like I do think that the protesters kind of fall along the socioeconomic spectrum. It just kind of depends, though. I think you can kind of find people in every.
And I think it very strongly varies by protest. But I mean, that aside, I'm not surprised Portman handled it well. From what I've heard from Republican friends who have met him at events or whatever, he's generally a pretty respectable person.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I'm saying
I don't know.
Politics aside, I'm saying as a person.
Okay. So, all right. Well, so I guess that'll roll into the next thing we wanted to talk about. Which, well, I think you more so want to talk about, so I will let you take the lead on that.
All right, sure. The next topic is one that should be near and dear to the Columbus art community's hearts. The annual Doodah parade that we have here.
Yeah, I've looked through a lot of the pictures,
and posted. We'll send links to some of those photos, because a lot of people did a really good job photographing all the parade flows, and I really like the idea of the Doodah parade. It's sort of this.
Yeah, it's community. It's like you can just jump into it.
Yeah, anyone. So let me explain what it is for those who don't know. The Doodah parade is sort of this make your own art float or parade, or I mean like little march. You can do whatever you want. I mean, generally it's like small cars and stuff. It's nothing crazy, nothing big, but yeah, anyone can enter. My problem with the Doodah parade this year was that, like, literally every other parade, if not, a Trump parade, was, it was referencing Trump, right? Like, there was one that was like a Star Wars parade that was basically putting Vader in the position of being Donald Trump, with like a hashtag make the empire great again, and then hashtag mega.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, so it'd be fine if that wasn't literally every other parade, right? Like, so my problem with this is they're very unoriginal, right? If it was like every other parade float is like some Obama thing in 2015,
it's still the same thing.
Yeah,
it'd be really boring.
This shit is boring. I mean, come up with a new joke.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was fine. I mean, you saw a lot of creativity. I really liked the parade as a whole.
Yeah, just like you, I was just kind of disappointed with. I mean, I guess I kind of knew it was coming, and it's not about it has nothing to do with Trump per se. It's just that it's like every other float, and it's like, yeah, I get the point. You guys don't like him. This isn't a protest parade. This is supposed to be something cool and fun that everybody can go out to, and then. It's like, well, it's like the Star Wars, that's Trump, and then Pink Floyd, The Wall, that's Trump, and it's like every single thing, and it's just like, all right, I'm ready to go. This is boring. It's just like I didn't come here to watch CNN or something. Watching a protest.
But see, I think the whole CNN thing is part of it, right? Well, not CNN, but the media in general, right? Left wing, right wing, everyone is fucking nonstop just jerking off Trump. One way or the other, right? Either it's a love jerk or it's a hate jerk, but people are jerking off Trump, and people want to talk about current events, so that's part of why there are so many Trump parades, because you look at current events and you can sum them up in one word basically, and it's Trump.
Yeah,
and it's a miserable thing. But I mean, I guess that's sort of my thoughts for the Doodah parade.
Yeah. Overall, it'll hopefully get better. In 4 years, I guess. I just don't want to see the same. I just hope that next year it's not the same.
Yeah, I really hope Trump mania is dead within a year. People need to calm the fuck down. He's not going to stop being president. He's not getting impeached.
Yeah.
Give up on that.
Yeah. I mean, and, again, the point here isn't to be pro or anti-Trump or anything like that. It's just, I have, fatigue from it. It's just,
Well, no, I think most people do, right? You turn on the news, it's gonna be Trump, right? You cannot turn on the news right now, and if you turn on the news right now, I promise you, of MSNBC, Fox News, or CNN, one of them is currently airing a Trump story.
Most likely all three, but
I mean that's possible.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so let's go on to the next topic.
So now that I am also fatigued from even today, so here's something that's actually, Trevor, it's a lot cooler, a lot more not well, I'm sure somebody will find a way to make it political, but
it's gonna be a great positive news story.
Yes, this is it.
No downsides.
Delivery robots that will bring me pizza to my front door here in Columbus. Super exciting for me, for being like a tech geek. I love that they're trying these things out. So I guess Ohio is one of 5 or so states that allows you to actually deliver things on sidewalks via robot. So this is actually, it's kind of funny, like, if it wasn't for our state actually being progressive in this law, this kind of thing would probably be going to, like, New York or California or something like that, and, that would kind of suck for us. But since we do have these cool progressive laws, this company, let's see, Starship Technologies, that's it. They've already like tested this vehicle out on like 30 or 40,000 miles of like sidewalks and stuff, and they also have human operators that can like grab the remote to like help it cross streets and stuff like that. But anyway, I think it's so I am a little bit worried because on one hand it's like, well, what about all the people who are delivering stuff? Like, it's like not good. Well, I mean, it's good, but it's not good to have all those people all of a sudden not have a job.
So here's the thing. That's not an argument.
Well, no, I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it's like something to think about.
Right. I mean, the big doomsday scenario that self-driving cars is about to introduce is that, the number one job by far in the country is truck driver.
Yeah.
And self-driving cars is going to wreck that. It's the same scenario at a smaller scale. Like,
right.
we're going to see how it plays out, but like saying it's going to unemploy people is not an argument. We shouldn't have automobiles if
Yeah, I mean, in and of itself, sure, but we can save that for some other time. The real question here, though, what I really want to know is if I order a pizza from Donato's, because that's the only place I'm going to order a pizza from, except like Harvest or whatever. How long is it going to take to get to me, and do I have to tip the robot? Because if I have to tip the robot, then it's like they might as well just send me a person. Because I'm not going to put like a $1 bill in its little like tip jar.
I guarantee you're not going to have to tip a robot. Amazon hates tipping. It's like all of their services, you can tell they just hate the idea of tipping. And I get it. It's messy and it's not controlled, and there's problems with it, right? It's not something you can streamline. So nobody really likes tipping. Yeah. Uber doesn't have tipping. Lyft does.
I know Uber I think they brought it. I think they added it actually. Lyft does though. You're right.
Yeah, I'm not that surprised because they're just not paying drivers enough from what I hear after repair costs and stuff. But so I think the real problem is going to be like logistics of like, what do you do when somebody fucking tries to jack the pizza off the robot or tries to jack the robot?
Well, I think so. Looking at the like pictures of this thing, like they'd have to break it, like they'd have to break open into it because it's locked.
I see. So
it's like it's encapsulated inside like the bot.
What happens when people start delivering more valuable items with them? Then?
So for one, I mean, this thing's got like cameras and stuff on it, so I guess you would see somebody trying to steal it, but I don't think it would ever, like, you're never going to deliver like iPads or something. This is always going to be, well, I could see like Amazon using it, but they're not going to use it to drop off. Well, a lot of times this stuff you need to sign anyway, but like they're not going to drop off like a brand new iPad or something with like a robot, at least not anytime soon. And dropping off a pizza, it's like, yeah, that would suck if that got stolen, but then for the pizza company, it's like, well, what's the cost of hiring all these and paying all these delivery drivers when I can just like have this robot just drive down the street and just toss out pizzas?
Yeah, that's fair. I think.
Oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say. I mean, there are only certain places where you can do it because, like, a lot of places, like, especially in Columbus, you have to drive.
Right.
Right. Like a little robot is not going to be able to go 5 miles.
Right. I mean, it's good for us in like realistic living land where you don't take a car everywhere, but. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not going to work in, like, Dublin or something like that. But downtown, like, this campus, like, all over campus and stuff, like, I'm sure it just sends you, like, a little text, like, hey, your robot's here with your pizza, and you just, like, go downstairs and, like, you just grab your pizza from it.
I feel so. They're going to stop, you know what? They're going to stop sending those robots on campus after, like, 10 p.m. Because you know what, drunk people are going to fuck with the robots. It's going to be a disaster. No, like, the robots are just getting called home at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
It's like lights out.
Yeah, you guys got to go to sleep. But anyway, so I'm excited that Columbus is like the test market for it, because
as we are everything.
Yeah, but it's cool. It's cool. So that's some positive uplifting non-Trump news this week. So let's continue with the Columbus news. Trevor, you have in case if you're listening, it looks like we're going to be going back and forth. Since we're both engineers, we're very
process
driven. Yeah.
God.
So
fucking hate processes in general. They're just bad. No one should follow any process. But anyways, so next topic.
Yeah.
Is ECOT and the potential for them to lose funding.
Ooh, so this is going to be a good one. I'm ready for this. Let's hear it.
Okay, so the series of stories here basically is that ECOT has lost a series of legal battles, and they keep challenging them on the idea that they should be funded for the schooling of kids who sort of don't complete...
like they're just non-traditional,
yeah,
for whatever reason.
Yeah, so ECOT's whole business model is I should say education model, is that they teach kids using an online-only curriculum where they have them sort of interact with their community. But generally they're pretty independent and they can finish school whenever. Some people take, 5 or 6 years, some people take like 2, which is where a lot of the problem lies. I mean, I went to ECOT, I never finished, got my GED, but I don't think it's a bad program for students. And I think it's helpful for a lot of people who just the traditional model isn't working for them for one reason or another, right? I was in a very local type area, or sorry, I should say rural type area where the education was just pretty bad, and the social environment was just sort of untenable for me. Yeah. So I mean, in cases like that, I think it's a great it's great to have that what is the word? I guess choice.
Yeah. Right? And so is ECOT like the only option, or why are they being
there? So there are 4 or 5, but ECOT is by far the largest, right?
Okay.
I mean, they're probably also the only one that's large enough to sort of have the money to fight this legal battle,
right?
Is my guess.
But they're not shutting down like all these schools, so like what's the...
Well, ECOT's not being shut down, they're just being denied a shit ton of money.
Oh. So but even that, like, I mean, so what was the funding model? Is it just like the state of Ohio pays them per student?
Yeah, just like every other school, the state of Ohio gives you money per student. And then, obviously schools are able to collect endowments every once in a while by, people who want to donate and give back. But that probably doesn't happen that much with ECOT, just because their business model is a lot less community centric. Right. That said, though, I think eventually they're going to win this case. No matter what you think about the case, I think eventually they're going to win because they have angry parents on their side and they have kids. Like they have
you seen that one commercial with the one guy, and he's like it's like the ECOT commercial, and it's just like the one guy, and he's just like, it's not fair. Like, I went to ECOT.
Yeah. No, the thing is, who are the passionate people on the other side of this argument?
Right.
Like eventually, online schools are basically going to be treated as other schools, and they're going to get whatever funding they think is fair. Because I think the big crux of the issue right now is whether or not they should be paid like for 4 years of schooling if students graduate early. I think that's one of the issues, right? So if like somebody finishes in 3 years, should they get 4 years of school funding?
Right. No, yeah, I can see that. I mean, I don't know like what the solution is here, because it seems like unless you go to a good public good public school, and I went to an okay one, but like unless you go to let's even like an okay to a good public school, and like you don't have anything crazy happen to you, even that education compared to like a lot of the world is still not that great. And then even when we're giving people alternatives, it's like there's just these huge money battles, and so I don't know. So like some days I'm just thinking like, should we just like privatize the whole thing? Should it just, or what could we do to like make the government teach better, or like get like, so I listened to another podcast.
Shilling for other people on
Yeah. So I listened to another podcast in like, I guess in like Norway, I think it was. So either there or Sweden or one of those, one of the Scandinavian countries. So what they do is like, to be a teacher, not only are you highly paid, like you actually have to go through pretty rigorous education. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to belittle anybody, but it seems like it's not that hard to get a degree. Like people get like a 4-year degree in education, like they're able to go out and like teach students. Whereas in countries where that, it's taken a lot more seriously. Like, you actually have to get, like, accredited. Like, it's pretty rigorous. And so I don't know, like, maybe that's, maybe there's we have, like, competing incentives where we're trying to, like, reduce the cost.
I think there are a couple of reasons for that, though. I think in part it's because education is, like, the default major, right? If you, like, kind of liked going to school and you want to go to college, or let's say there's an onus upon you, family or whatever, to go to college, like, the default choice ends up being education of some sort.
Right.
Middle childhood, early childhood, doesn't matter. Like, you end up in education, I feel. It's like the engineering equivalent is like mechanical engineering. Like, I don't know what kind of engineer I want to be. I want to be a mechanical, right? I don't know what kind of collegiate I want to be. I'll be a education major. Yeah. And I think that's part of the problem. There's also, I mean, in the U.S., there's also sort of a teacher shortage, but their pay is not going to go up.
Right. So the thing is, that doesn't make any sense, though, is, like, it's not responding to, like, normal market demands. Like, if you have a shortage of something, the price should rise. Just in general. So if there's a shortage of teachers, you think that the wages would rise, but why aren't they?
I mean, I think that the part of that is that there's not a real shortage of teachers so much as there's a demand for smaller classrooms from parents.
Right.
And
which is fine, because I think those are better.
Well, here's the thing. Parents aren't directly making market choices directly. They're not choosing or really they can't sort of choose
where their kids go to school.
Yeah, more or less.
Right. So, like, if you go to school in, like, let's say, like, a crappy school system, or, like, somewhere where, even, like, I guess for this ECOT thing, where, like, maybe your child for whatever reason just doesn't fit into the traditional school year, which, and by the way, don't get me started about not having school in summer, because that drives me crazy, because that's taking, like, 3 to 4 years easy out of a child's education. But anyway. So that's, like, another.
I mean, I do think there should be some sort of break, but
there's no reason to have, like, a 3-month sabbatical or whatever. Because you're like, I was a kid, you were a kid. Like, I didn't do anything when I had that time off. Like, I didn't do anything. Yeah. I just, like, played video games, which is fine. But there's no reason to take off an entire summer to, like, do that. And then on top of that, you put parents in a stressful situation if they're relying on school to more or less be the daycare.
That's a big fight to fight, though, especially because it's such a cultural thing. It's so ingrained in us. It's, just because since public education has existed, summers have basically been off.
And why did they have summers off? So they could go harvest?
Yeah, I mean,
exactly. So we were dealing with this, like, antiquated, stupid thing that we do.
We still have daylight savings time, man.
Yeah, but that makes more sense than not sending kids to school in the summer.
I mean, daylight savings originally existed for farmers. All I'm saying is, like, there's a lot of this sort of agrarian-centric shit that's still around.
But I think this one thing is, like, literally, like, holding kids back from being able to compete in, like, modern civilization. It's because you're just losing out on so much time where you could be learning some other subject, or, like, maybe you spend summer school, like, just getting, maybe you weren't great at math like I was, and then you just, like, spend that time getting better. Like, there's so many different things you could do. Like, when I have kids, like, I'm absolutely sending them to some sort of summer school. Like, there's no question about that. So they can cry and moan all they want when, like, their friends are, like, out, like, playing video games or, like, riding their bikes, but, like, 30 years later, when they have successful careers, they'll be thanking me.
So this is actually really interesting, and my girlfriend brought this up, that every year during summertime, she went to summer school, and all of her friends went to summer school. And of course, she's from a somewhat affluent background, and I'm definitely not.
Right.
And in my experience, it's completely different. I never once went to a summer camp.
I never did either.
And so I think that's a big difference between sort of wealthy and poor America, is that wealthy kids don't really have that off. They don't have that unstructured huge free time that we did. They are literally sent to summer camp.
Yeah. Which, I mean, and, like, maybe you can balance it too. Like, maybe you give them 1 week off a month or something. I mean, there's just something. You could just do something, because I think it's valuable for children to have that unstructured time. But at the same time, in today's society, what does unstructured time mean? It means sitting around on stupid Facebook.
I think a slightly longer, like, winter break might be kind of ideal for something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what I was gonna say after we went on this tangent here was, like, I've kind of come to hold the opinion that I think everybody should be able to get a voucher. Like, so let's say we want to have public education. Like, why not give everybody, poor, rich, whatever, a voucher that is good for any school in the state. Whether it's a private school, a public school, a charter school, like whatever the heck the difference is. Well, I think private maybe not, because if it's just totally private, but public or charter school, and then let parents send their kids where they want to go, like where the best schools are, and then just do it, because clearly what we're doing right now doesn't work. Like our kids in like the more impoverished areas are clearly still falling behind, and nothing's fixing that. So like they're pouring millions of dollars into it, and nothing is getting better.
So I take it you think Betsy DeVos is probably the best cabinet pick Trump had.
Oh, I wasn't really familiar with that, but I think she's like the same thing.
Yeah, she's super school of choice.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of a fan of her Title IX changes, but like,
sure.
I mean, that's aside. That's a college thing, but or at least her opinions on Title IX. But I mean, yeah, she's very, very pro school of choice, which is sort of what you're advocating.
Yeah.
And I mean, the arguments against it are that the impoverished are just less likely or less able to sort of grab those positions in the higher ranking schools, and so somebody's got to go to the shit schools.
But at least they have a shot, because like right now, like I mean, I went to Columbus Public Schools when I was a kid, and it's like right now, like you just have no shot. Like you're just getting sent to the worst schools in the city, no matter what. Like there's just nothing you can do about it.
You read Freakonomics, right?
Yeah.
Levitt actually talks about Chicago sort of implementing this sort of school of choice thing, and it turns out that the effectiveness is mixed. But I mean, it can be done well. What you have to do is you have to sort of disassociate people with their existing friend groups, because it turns out.
Oh yeah, because your friends, they dictate.
Yeah, I mean, more than anything.
You hang out with the smart kids, you're going to be one of the smart kids. I mean, that's what it boils down to. I hung out with all the stoners. I didn't actually become one of them, but so I guess I'm like not making my point.
Well, yeah,
I'm like the exception to my own rule.
I mean, I sort of fall in that category too. Yeah. But I mean, I think in general, it's been shown that your friend group has far more influence over you and how you develop than your parents do, even, which is insane. But I mean, you have to sort of break up that structure in order to see improvement among students.
Right.
And I think the California lottery system, Chicago lottery system isn't a bad way to go about it. But I mean, I don't really get the strong sort of pushback against the school of choice thing.
Yeah. It just, I mean, to me, it just doesn't make, because I mean, if you look at nothing else, you could just say, well, what we're doing right now, it's clearly failed, and it's continuing to fail. So let's just try something, like anything almost would be better than what we're doing now, which is just sinking more money into the schools, and it's just not having the effect that everybody wants. I mean, it's just a failure. So just like accept that that's a failure and then move on. But yeah, I'm sure. Like I know the reason that it's not happening, but
it's too politically charged, and one of the biggest things is nobody wants to see their fucking kid dropped into a worse district than they're in, right? If you live in Bexley, the idea of your kid potentially not going to Bexley because other kids...
this is the thing. This is where I think... I don't think you don't just, like, limit it. Like, you don't just say, oh, well, Bexley or wherever gets 10,000... I don't know. I'm just making up numbers. 10,000 students and, like, no more. So, like, if a whole bunch of parents... and they have a whole bunch of vouchers, and they bring all those vouchers to the city, to the school, the Bexley school system. Guess what, Bexley? You get a brand new facility, and like now you can go hire more teachers to teach those kids because you've already developed the winning. You've already had the money or whatever the reason. You developed the winning culture to generate positive results, so other people can be brought up with you, and so then you shut down all the bad schools and you fire all the bad teachers.
I think part of the problem there is. First of all, you need to hire teachers. They have to come from somewhere. Right. I mean, second of all, buildings don't just pop up overnight. There are huge,
there's always transition periods.
I mean, there's huge logistics problems, and this isn't just a small transition period. This is huge. Like having staff like Bexley has, because obviously they're probably paying their teachers more than Columbus City is.
Sure.
Like finding that talent isn't easy. And if you're Bexley especially, right? If you're near the top, it's really fucking hard.
I mean, I don't think those are obstacles. I mean, I think they're challenges, but I don't think they're not barriers.
I think it makes sense from an administration perspective, right? Because there's obviously something going wrong with the administration at CPD, Columbus City Schools.
Yeah, not the Columbus Police Department.
Although,
that's its own
can of worms. Yeah.
But which is a mixed can of worms. by the way, but it's not either good or bad. But
yeah, I agree. But my point is that Columbus City Schools is obviously doing something wrong on an administrative level that would be fixed by that, but I don't think that addresses the whole problem or nearly.
No, it doesn't. I mean, it's there's a variety of factors, but
teacher competence being one.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the home environment is another big one, right?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, it absolutely is. There's no question about that, and it's not like I mean, it affects everybody in that socioeconomic like standpoint. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, what else your background is. Like, if you're in like a I don't know, less fortunate area, I guess you could say. Like, if you're in one of these areas and like you just happen to have bad parents, or like maybe they grew up and they didn't have great parents, or like whatever. I don't know what the circumstances could be, but regardless, like, it affects everybody at that level, and there's nothing that's fixing it that is being done right now, at least to me. So, and then closing down back to ECOT. On one hand, from what I've read, it seems like there's like embezzlement going on and like all this kind of stuff, and I don't know the details, so somebody else can call us out. But
I'm not
at least they tried.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
At least they tried to fill like a niche that needed something filled. It's like people who don't want to go to those schools because maybe they're bullied, I don't know, or maybe they just can't, for some reason. Maybe they have a disability and they can't like sit in classroom all day, which is not even like the best way to teach people anyway. So
yeah, I mean,
who knows?
I think there's a lot of issues.
Yeah.
God, wow.
Yeah. So we can kind of beat that one to death. Okay. So more fun news. So last week we did our first episode, and that was around the 4th of July, America's birthday. And for those who didn't listen to that episode for some crazy reason, we talked about how great it is to be American. And so because it's so great to be American, and America is so awesome, our good friend in North Korea, Kim Jong-un, he like sent us the biggest firework ever. He just launched an ICBM and was like, "Hey America, like, this is so great for you," and he used some different words. But so this is a really interesting, and I guess this is like sort of Columbus related, just because it doesn't affect us completely right now, but in a very abstract way, it affects us.
Unlike Anchorage, we're still outside of their range.
Yeah. But now this is a pretty precarious situation. So on one hand, you kind of got to side with North Korea, because if America doesn't like you, but you have nuclear weapons, we generally haven't ever done anything. I mean, Iran, there was like Bush and Cheney and all those guys hated Iran. They never did anything with Iran. They put troops in Afghanistan and Iraq and kind of surrounded them there, but they never did anything because there's the chance that I think they think Iran has nukes and stuff like that, or I don't know, Pakistan, like nobody ever did anything about Pakistan, even though Bin Laden was like just camping out and like sipping mojitos and in one of their military compounds. Ridiculous. Anyway, so if you're North Korea, it makes sense to build a nuclear weapon. Like, no matter what else anybody gives you, you should still do that, because it kind of gives you like an immunity from being like just blown up.
Well, yeah. Once you have the nuclear deterrent, you basically become one of the real countries that no longer engages in petty war. Right. There are sort of the countries that Russia and the U.S., etc., are willing to engage in military action against, and then there are the countries that they aren't, because those countries, worst case, are willing to
just say the hell with everything and
commit to doomsday. Yeah, basically. And yeah, so from that perspective, I understand why North Korea pushes for the nuclear program.
Right. Which, and this is why it's such a big problem, because at some point you either have, so like let's say you're the United States, South Korea, and Japan. And then on the other side, you have North Korea. And China kind of doesn't want anybody to invade North Korea because of the whole, we'll have American troops on our doorstep, which I don't really get that, because
South Korea exists, basically.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't get that. And B, any sort of military fighting with China is not going to just like, it's not like, 40,000 troops are just going to like roll into China and like destroy everything from like one spot. So that doesn't even make any sense to me. I think it's just BS. But
I mean, I think it's geopolitics.
Yeah. And I mean, so whatever. But if you're so if you're like the U.S., South Korea, and Japan, you know, regardless, like you have a big problem on your hand, because if North Korea gets a nuclear weapon, and they probably have it, the real question is, can they actually like? I think for sure they can drop a nuclear weapon in Japan.
No, we know they definitely have it.
So the real problem you have is, at what point do you stop letting them extort you? Because right now, I mean, so if they say, give us X, Y, and Z, or we're going to drop a nuclear bomb on Seoul, what do you do? Like, you either have to call their bluff, or if the dangerous part, though, is if you call their bluff, they have to do something. Because if they don't do something, then you look at, you know, China, the U.S., and South Korea look at each other and they're like, well, we don't have to give in to them anymore because we just called their bluff and they didn't do anything about it. So that's the dangerous situation. Because, and then if, God forbid, North Korea actually does something, then of course the United States has to, you know, bomb the hell out of that place. But either way, it's like, I mean, I think people don't realize like how kind of dangerous of a situation this is. I think just because we've kind of gotten immune to it over the last 20 years or 30 years or whatever, because it's just kind of gotten a little bit crazier every year. But so I think we've kind of gotten immune to it, like, oh, they launched another missile. But at some point, like, you know, they're actually gonna maybe they'll even get to the point where they can actually, you know, drop a nuclear bomb in LA or San Francisco or Seattle or something. So you know, what do you do? Like,
I've got a prediction, and I think you might think this is crazy, but I think we're going to have to see some type of major escalation within Trump's presidency within the next 3.5 years.
Which is a scary thought.
But I mean, I think it's got to happen, right? Because they can hit Anchorage now. They can hit a major. Well, not major.
Yeah, I mean, I think they missed, but
they can
right.
reach U.S. populations now.
Right.
That's a problem.
Well, why don't they ever talk about Hawaii? Like, is Hawaii? I mean,
nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, I don't want to, like, if I was North Korea, like, screw Anchorage, like, I'd drop a nuclear bomb in Hawaii, because that's, like, paradise, so.
Nobody gives a shit about Hawaii.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying, it doesn't make any sense to me. But, yeah.
Also, Alaska's bigger.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, so it's, like, easier for them to, I don't know.
No, it was a joke, but no, eventually, you're right, they are going to get to the point where they can hit the East Coast, and, I mean, once we're talking about hitting the East Coast, there's no missing anymore.
Right, you'll hit something, and
I mean, you'll kill a few 100,000 people regardless, right?
Right.
Slip and hit San Bernardino instead of L.A. and there's still a big problem.
Right. So yeah, I mean that's something that I'm kind of concerned about, and you know, it's not so much like, it's not like a fear mongering thing. Like, I'm not like walking around like checking the latest, like, oh man, what's like North Korea doing right now? Because like I don't live in fear and I never will. But you know, at some point.
It's got to come to a head.
Yeah, I mean, maybe China actually has the influence where they can, you know, North Korea can get a nuclear weapon and then never, you know, just kind of have that, I guess, protection. But then they can't, at the same time, they can't go around trying to extort other people, because like China, South Korea, Japan, and the U.S. Because like if they do, then, you know, eventually the bluff's going to get called. So what I'm hoping is the best case scenario is like, we can kind of not talk them down, but at least if they do get a nuclear weapon, at least kind of limit the extortion and the craziness. But if we can't, I don't know. I don't know what else is gonna. What else there is to do.
So I mean, there's a huge problem. Even if we achieve complete and total military victory over them, let's say we stomp them to the ground and they, you know, manage to get 0 nukes off, right? Best case ish. You now have the problem of millions and millions of refugees.
Right.
And whose responsibility is that?
Right.
China? China is going to execute them.
Right.
South Korea, it's going to devastate their economy.
Right. So no matter, there's just like, it's like a no-win situation. It's just a matter of like when it's like musical chairs, but it's like, you know, when's it actually gonna go to a head?
Yeah, it's I mean, the geopolitical situation is really bad.
I'd say it's way bigger of a problem than ISIS is or anything like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, ISIS is a glorified terrorist organization that's sitting on some land temporarily.
Right.
Like, ISIS's position is also untenable, but it's not untenable in that one of the scenarios involves nuclear war.
Yeah, I mean, and ISIS is also, like, they're already getting crushed in Iraq. Like, I mean, that's...
Well, yeah, they can't stop their officers from getting sniped by drones.
Right. So, yeah, we'll see. So that, you know, that was I think that was a good topic to bring up to kill the mood. But that's yeah. So I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. Maybe somebody listening in can, you know, maybe we can get like I don't know.
We're gonna have like
General Mattis.
I was gonna
former
say.
General Mattis.
I was gonna say we're gonna have like Mad Dog Mattis.
He did
email us.
He did say if anything happens, it's gonna be the worst fighting in most people's lifetimes, and I completely agree. I think it'd be very awful.
Yeah, I mean, I've argued that the
I don't even think it would be bad for the U.S. From the United States standpoint, because I think largely, yes, like troops would be over there, but I think we're kind of like done with that.
I mean,
the
thing is, they have millions of soldiers. They like their entire country is basically.
And like even if you have like let's say they have 8 million soldiers, whatever that means. Let's just say that, or 4 million or something. Like even if you cut those numbers in half, that's still millions of people. Like let's just say half desert, which I don't know if that would happen. Then what? What do you have, like a couple million people, and then like they just go crazy? Like I just what do you I just don't know what you do about it.
And let's say we're trading like 100 to 1, right?
Right.
Now we're looking at what? Okay, so if there's 4 million people, we're looking at what? 40,000 American dead. Like that's the American public won't tolerate that. That's too high for them. Even though that's less than a World War I battle.
Right.
It's a really bad situation. I gotta cut that audio. I can't just keep repeating myself. But anyways, so should we move on to the next topic?
Yeah,
much more
even more
dire, more serious.
Dire.
All right. So the foundations of our democracy are coming to a halt, grinding to a halt. As
I feel like I live in a dictatorship already.
I mean, are we really that much better than Kim Jong-un?
That's the real question.
If
are we that much better?
If our world leader,
our glorious leader,
Donald J. Trump, is allowed to just nepotistically have his daughter sit in for him at the G20 summit.
End of the world. That's over. We're probably going to get arrested for having this podcast. It's over.
I hear the authoritarians knocking right now.
Yeah,
but seriously, let's talk about this honestly. What are your thoughts on Ivanka Trump sitting in for Donald Trump?
I largely just don't really care. I don't know why I don't care. I think I'm supposed to care, but like from what I've read, she's like doing some work on this topic that she sat in on the meeting for, and it's like everybody freaked out about it. But I just don't care. I don't know. Like when I go home, like I care about like global warming or like, something like that. And then people were like, well, why don't you care about, it's like nepotism and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I get that. Like I get that, like that thing. But then, what was you think like Hillary Clinton wasn't doing stuff when she was the first lady? Like she wasn't. She's the first lady. Like you're not even an elected official. At least he like hired his daughter to like be in this advisory position, or any of those kind of positions. Like you obviously bring in friends and family to do things, and
it's a weird thing, and it's kind of shady, right? And I would rather it not happen. But I mean, this is no different than what the Kennedys did. I mean, it's not like this is unprecedented in American history, right?
Right.
I mean, at least the Trumps are not currently a fucking, multi-generational political dynasty, although I guess with Ivanka that's probably likely to be the case. Yeah. So, I mean, it's
or the Bushes, or the Clintons, or
the Kennedys.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So what, I don't, some people are like, this is like, freaking out about this, and it's like, yeah, hello, welcome to like, what, the last 40 or 50 or 70 years or something, like...
Yeah, I think like all but one of our presidents were related to one of the English kings.
Yeah.
Which I mean, yeah, it's not that surprising. The upper class is sort of very small and very powerful, and they tend to not mix with the commoners.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was looking around, before we were talking about this. Apparently, it's had a whole bunch of people have done this. I guess John Adams appointed his son to be the ambassador to Prussia. James Buchanan's son was the first secretary to the president, now known as the chief of staff. Franklin Roosevelt's son was the president's secretary. Dwight Eisenhower gave his son a job as an assistant staff secretary.
Oh, the Roosevelts.
Yeah, them. John Kennedy appointed his brother Robert to be attorney general, even though he had no practice in law. Bill Clinton appointed Hillary to lead healthcare reform. I mean, look, I get it. Like, if you're what just bothers me. Like, if you're against it, fine. But, like, don't do it because you're just anti-Trump. Trump. Like, that's what bothers me. Like, I don't want to see anybody do that. I think it's, it's wrong everywhere. I'm not going to just, focus my outrage on just this one person and, like, this one president when it's just been happening for, it's repeatedly happened.
Yeah,
that's what bothers me.
I do really hate this sort of part of, two-party baseball where it's like, we'll allow it for ourselves, but not for our enemies, right? Like, the hypocrisy is just non-stop.
Right.
From both parties.
Right.
And I think, like, everyone knows it's bullshit, unless you're, like, really, really...
No, I think, dude, I think most people are...
Unless you're really deeply partisan, I think... Which, okay, maybe that's the most of the country now. But I think unless you're really partisan, you're like, yeah, both parties will talk shit about things that they have done in the past.
Right. And, like, do you think if Hillary Clinton had won, like, do you think Chelsea wouldn't be doing anything? Like she would have absolutely zero involvement in the White House at all. No, well, of course she would be involved in some. She would have some pet project. It's just that's just what happens. Like, that happens, like, all the time. And
I mean, yeah, I bet she would be involved in some press thing.
And I think it's more of it matters if you're, like, old enough, or, like, if you're in the right kind of, like, almost justifiable position, because, like, Chelsea, I think she's over 18 or whatever. So I mean, she's like 26. Or
she sits on the board of the Daily Beast. So, like, I think they'd probably put her in some press thing.
Yeah,
right. Like, maybe she'd be doing Spicer's job.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's like, everybody wants to freak out about this one, and so I just don't care.
But let's
see that, and then.
But let's be fair. If Chelsea Clinton had Spicer's job, the Democrats would be like. I mean, they would not be throwing a fit, and then
of course not.
And then people on the Republican side, they would be losing their fucking minds. Fox News every time,
right?
Like, it would just be nonstop. It would just be 4 years of, like.
So it'd kind of be like the last 8 years with them freaking out over Obama, but.
Yeah, I mean, no, but, like, that's all the news channels now, right?
Right.
Like, everyone has picked a side.
Yeah. Not me. I don't like either of them, so.
I mean, that makes two of us and only two of us.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, CNN is doing better than they ever have been.
Yeah, they're probably raking in the cash right now.
I mean, Trump's strat works for everyone. I think Obama strat worked too, right? Like, I really think this sort of started with Obama. So I think there are two ways to look at it. I think it started with Obama or it started with Clinton, depending on how much you view the curve. I think it's been a constant curve of, like, more and more and more coverage of the president.
Yeah, don't forget Bush too. Like, what was that? What was it, like the New York Times or something? It was like, how can so many people be so stupid when they, like, reelected him in 2004? Right. I don't know if it was the Times or whatever. And I have actually, full disclosure, have a subscription to the New York Times, so I'm not, like, just hating on them. I don't read any of the political stuff because it's just boring.
You mean
and largely uninformed, but a lot of their other stuff's good, especially, like, their travel articles and what have you. So,
but yeah, I think. Well, I mean, so I don't think there was that much of a sort of curve increase between Clinton and Bush. I think they were covered sort of about the same. And then you have this big Obama spike, and then now you have this big Trump spike.
Yeah.
So it's just fucking rocketing. And then nobody cared about H.W. Bush. Let's be honest here.
Yeah. So, anyway, so since we're kind of talking about that theme of things, so for our listeners, Trevor and I both just did. We took advantage of the Mother's Day. I think, well, I did at least. I took advantage of the Mother's Day, like $10 off or whatever it was for 23andMe. Not that we're advertising for that.
So when you say just did, reminder Mother's Day was several months ago.
Yeah, so for me that was like just yesterday.
It does take a while to get your results.
Which is why it feels like it was just yesterday. But so we're not like advertising for them or anything. But so
please buy 23andMe.
Yeah. Well, that's funny because that's one of the big sponsors for a lot of podcasts. So hey, 23andMe, if you're listening, like, give me some money. But not really. Well, yeah, sure. Actually, just give me money. That'd be awesome. But
yeah. He's not promising to shill products. He just wants money.
Yeah. No, I'd shill products for money as long as they weren't, like, stupid. So, but anyway, so I have a suggestion. So we have a lot of. So I actually think racial tension has gone down overall in the country, but I think
from when?
From forever. I think it's just always on a downward trend.
I disagree.
Sure, but well, let me finish. So I think the problem is it's just more like out in the open and talked about. And so I have a proposal for a solution, or at least part of the solution. So this brings me back to the 23andMe. So I always wanted to know, like, where am I from? What, who were my ancestors and all that fun stuff. And so I found out I'm like 98.5% Northwestern European, like, so like half British and whatever, and then the rest like Scandinavian and all that stuff. Which, if you see me, shouldn't be much of a surprise. But I was thinking about it, and like, when I fill out like forums or something like that, they're always like, hey, click if you're like African American or white non-Hispanic. And I'm doing air quotes here if you can't see me, so unless you're a stalker outside. But white non-Hispanic, and then there's white, and then there's like Asian or Native American, Pacific Islander, and all this stuff. I think one of the things that would kind of help dethrone white people with this like kind of normal standard, like you're the default in America, is by forcing us to call ourselves European American. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's fine. I think a lot of people do, but I do think that when you start using those words, certain people will see European American as dog whistling for white supremacist.
See, that's what doesn't make any sense for me, because it doesn't have anything to do with that. It's just a statement of fact. Like, I'm from here. Like, how is that like racist compared to like just being called white? Because when you're called white, that's just the assumed like norm in the country. But when you say, oh, I'm European American, that makes you just like everybody else. You like just came here.
So am I to take the devil's advocate position here? Because
if you want to.
So I don't agree with it, but I think the idea is that anyone who sort of mentions alternative terms to white, Anglo-centric kind of terms, that you end up getting accused of white nationalism or worse, right?
Sure. I just don't understand it. Like, I don't know, like, what does that even, like, if I just walk up to you and like I'm just normal me and I'm like, hey, I'm Eric, and they're like, hey, like, where are you from? I don't know. And I'm like, oh, I'm like European American, like my ancestors were from the British Isles and Scandinavia. So now all of a sudden, like, I'm a huge racist guy? That's stupid. That doesn't make any sense to nobody could ever justify that.
Why don't you just call yourself white?
Because
if you're not a racist, why don't you call yourself white?
Here's the thing. Because there are white non-Hispanic. So then what you're doing is you're saying white people are the norm, and then being Hispanic is the not norm. So you're white, not Hispanic.
Right.
So that's institutional racism there. Because why isn't it like, why aren't you, just white, and then everybody who's like European, like I'm just European American white, so like why not white white Hispanic or something like, or like not, just reverse those two or something like that. So I think formalizing that distinction adds to the idea that like we're all immigrants, we all came here to America, so regardless of our background.
I think a big part of why people, certain groups of people see it as being sort of a white supremacist type of deal is because white supremacists tend to be very, very proud of their European heritage. And so people generally, like it or not, see you being proud of the homeland as...
I'm not even German, so... Although the British were probably worse, so...
The homeland.
Yeah.
They see it as being sort of dog whistling for I'm great because I'm white. See, by not calling yourself white, it kind of implies that you're great because you're white. It's a weird thing.
Yeah. So for me, like with my non-racism, like I just don't, and like I don't do the identity politics and stuff. So to me, I just don't get it. Like I think everybody should just be treated equally. So if we're gonna have African Americans, and if we're gonna have like Filipino Americans, and we're gonna have Mexican Americans and stuff, well, why not treat like white people, instead of treating white people with a special privilege, which is you're white, why not make white people also be European Americans or British Americans or whatever, if you can actually identify where you're from.
Here's the thing. I think most people, if you explain that to them, just like sat down and broke it down like that, would agree with you. The majority of people. However, I mean, that's just not how the world works, right? Like, people are getting all kinds of different ideas, all kinds of different crazy shit at all times, including a lot of identity politics stuff, right? And so everyone has this sort of mishmash of conflicting ideas, and I mean, I don't think that's a tenable idea to push, because it's just not going to gain steam.
Yeah, I don't think it'll get steamed or any steam, but I think that's just because everybody's racist, so we're all just like racist, and we're just gonna keep saying that white people.
No,
are the norm.
I think that's bullshit. Saying everybody is racist is fucking nonsense.
Well, no, the thing is, like, you're just gonna keep saying, "Oh, well, white people are the norm," and it's just like you're gonna keep propping up institutional racism by saying that white people are the norm because they're white people, and because the things that you imply when you say that are like white people were here first. And white people are the norm, and like all this kind of stuff. When you just have white people,
well, you can say like white people are a thing without saying white people are the norm.
No, but that's what you imply because the institutional history behind that.
Why?
That's just the way it is. I mean, that's like you said. That's the way the world works. Like everything, like the default for things are just like white, but it shouldn't be. Like everything should have like it should be like European American or something like that. Because if you keep promoting the idea that white people are the norm, then you keep kind of feeding into the institutional racism that exists.
I don't see why by definition of white existing, like white people as a category existing, that it makes white people the norm.
It just does. I mean, I don't know how else to. It's just like that's just the way the world works. Like that's just there. It is.
I mean, so you can't picture a world where like the category of white exists without that being the case.
Well, no, you could, but I think if you want to improve, if you're one of your goals is to try to remove the institutional racism that's existed in this country, getting rid of white, not Hispanic, or white Hispanic, or whatever that is. I don't even remember now, but because it kind of varies. But getting rid of certain things like that, I think, kind of go, and then for having white people instead of just referring to themselves as white people can go a long way towards getting past that idea of like the institutional historical white people, because like the general consensus, I think, or at least maybe this is just me, I don't know, like maybe I'm completely huge racist or something, but my like when the things that I think about, I think like, oh, like I kind of think like white people settled this country. Like that's kind of like a thing that I don't know about the truth of it. That's not like, well, obviously Native Americans are here first, but like when I think about that, I think white people came here, and then white people landed on Plymouth Rock and like all this stuff, and I don't think like Europeans came here. And so I think being able to reintroduce that, hey, you're immigrants too, along with everybody else, can kind of put the white people on like a much more level playing field with respect to like so like there's all these people that are anti-immigrant, right? And that's its own discussion too. But let's say they're like racist anti-immigrant or something like that, just to make this work. So you say something like that, and then it's like, well, if you just if you started referring to yourself as European American, I think you identify more with you are also an immigrant versus being, I'm just like white, I'm just here. And I mean that's the connotation I get with it. So
right. So here's the thing. It's a good way to sort of suss out and challenge the beliefs of actual white racists, basically. Yeah. I think that's the category that you sort of turn. The problem is, I mean, I think there's another group of sort of racist, on the opposite side, the sort of idpol, the identity politics type people who I would also categorize as largely racist. Sure. That's not going to fly for at all, and they're just going to call you a white supremacist. Yeah, I mean, they'd just be wrong, but I guess they have Twitter accounts and I don't. But I will say though that I don't agree with you on thinking that like X person who did thing was white person. I don't tend to think like that. I think that might just be a you thing. No, I'm pretty sure that's. Or it might just. If you ask most people, like that's just kind of like the cultural norm. Right. I mean, it might be. I'm not like, I don't just look at something and I just assume it's like a white person. That's not what I mean. I'm just saying it's kind of like white people are still the norm. Like if you're white, you're like normal in America. Like you're considered to be even amongst white people, amongst Asian people, amongst black people. Like not I'll speak for everybody, but I'm speaking for a lot of people that I know. Being a white person, like that's the standard, and what I'm trying to do is break that standard. And the only way I could think to do that is by forcing some sort of differentiator that decouples being the standard and adds instead of that takes and adds a component of being an immigrant.
So.
All right, that's fair.
I mean, like my entire family came over here, and like the War of 1812 or something like that. So, like, I'm an immigrant. I'm just like pretty far removed, and so what I want to do is just reintroduce that to, But you can't just like I don't know how else you do it.
I don't think racists are a huge problem. At least not as huge as like the fight against them. I mean, at this point.
Oh yeah.
So I don't even know if that's a fight worth having.
Yeah, right? It might not be worth
like if you were willing to like make that a pet topic, I think it might be not worth your time.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea. But I do think maybe my perspective's a little bit different because I grew up in a multiracial household. But that was never a thing, right? It was never like, oh yeah, the founding fathers or like. White people.
I mean, even when you think about that, it's like, I don't know. To me, it feels like it's too. It feels like things are too. I mean, again, you can just go back to like filling out the stupid census or something. It's just like, like you're just by default you're just like. To me, when I read that, I feel like it's very white centric. But
I mean, I will say one thing is though that like 80% of the population is white. So it being.
I don't know is it that high.
It might not be anymore.
Okay.
I mean, I just tend to associate like the white statistic with the Christian statistic, which tended to be close. Yeah. Both are probably decreasing.
Oh, oops. Oh, I keep typing in racism. It's 63.7.
Okay, so that's a lot lower.
Right, but see, even this. So I just looked up. American population by race.
Mm-hmm.
So, here's the categories: white, African American, American Indian, and Alaska Native, and Asian. So to me, even the Asian one's kind of bad too because there's different. You should be like Korean Asian or like Japanese or Korean American or like Japanese American or something like that. Because like I feel like Asian is just a catch-all, and it's just like racist because you don't, you're just like, oh, they're just Asian and. Yeah, to me that's just kind of racist.
Then
why are black people and American Indians like why aren't they just the default? Like they were here first.
I mean,
but black people, like why are you calling them African American?
I mean,
why not
so the African American thing, that's a completely different discussion.
No, I think they're I don't think you can divorce it. I just want it one way or the other. Like I want everybody either called by like what other country they came from because we all came from somewhere else, or just call people, I don't know, white, black, and I guess Asian. I don't know.
So for useful census data, I think the better way to do it would be country of origin, where like Native Americans, you just say their country of origin is in the United States, right? Like I think that's a fair way to handle it.
Yeah.
So like I mean, or you could call it ancestral country of origin.
Yeah, but then a lot of people don't know that though too. So. Like, I mean, regardless of your race, like, there's a lot. I mean, I think at least among white and black people, a lot of us have no idea, like, where we're actually from. Like, you can be, like, black, but you can be from Ghana, or you can be from South Africa, or you can be from...
So what value is the data, then?
Well, I'm not saying it's valuable. From who's the census perspective?
Yes.
I don't know. That's the thing. They just categorize. They're all just black and they're all just white. But then they separate out other stuff, and I'm just like, either separate all of them out, like it's best to your knowledge, or just call people Asian and black and I don't know, Indian. I don't know if that's the right term for American Indian and Alaskan Native. Why are they differentiating that? But then black people are just black people as though they didn't come from, as though they didn't have a different, different areas of origin. The same thing with Asian and white people. I just want everything to be consistent.
How about we
less racist?
How about we just have like a color slider scale and we have people mark where they think they are on the...
That's probably not a bad idea, but the government would probably do it poorly, and then they would get sued.
All right, well...
So we beat that topic to death, so... But it's just something I was kind of interested in, just because... I don't, I want to turn the tide with like all the anti-immigrant sentiment, the racism. There's been like hate crimes and all this stuff going on, and I just don't like it. And so, what can we do to make it so that like people that are here feel more like make everybody feel more like the same, I guess. Like, I don't know. So that's just a bit of a tangent, but yeah.
So I think we've basically
covered everything in the world.
Yeah, I think it's about time to wrap up.
All right, so everybody, that's send me some hate mail. I'm sure I'll get it and get called a racist now for suggesting that. So
that makes two of us.
So I'll get called a racist, and then probably North Korea lover.
Oh yeah, you're definitely an agent of Pyongyang.
Yeah, and then pro ECOT and pro robot overlord. So and pro Portman. So that's probably the worst of them all. All right, so that's a wrap for us. This has been Columbus this week. I hope you guys have had a great week, and then we'll see you next Sunday. And hopefully the weather is good next Sunday too, as it is today. So I'm looking forward to getting outside instead of sitting here. So.
Yep. Thanks for listening.
Cool. Bye.